joins me now for the call. We saw Elizabeth Leachman defend her title here. No champion to be crowned for a second straight year here. But do you have a pick?
Oh my goodness, do I have a pick? I have so many picks, but I really like Keegan Smith's story, and I have said that a few times already, but you know, when you have a chance to come as a freshman, that's pretty cool, especially on the boys' side. There's not many that do that. But then when you have to sit at home and watch it for 2 years, oh, you know that his blood is boiling.
A lot of stories that get you to the line, but a story will now unfold here shortly as the 40 best cross-country runners in the nation gather here on a spectacular Saturday day in mid-December in San Diego, California, as they get set to race for a national championship. The 2024 Foot Locker 45th anniversary race for a boys championship is underway. 5,000 meters the distance as they'll funnel their way down here to the early going, head towards the dog park, and we're up, and away.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's just like, let the nerves go. Just get out there and do what you know you can do. And a lot of these athletes have talked about the confidence that they have coming into this race. I mean, some of the stats that I've heard, 86% of these guys are seniors that win this race. So when they've been through a lot that they've been through in their high school careers, they come here. This is the last cross-country race of all. So they're really excited about that. 82% are regional winners. So that's a pretty big stat to know that we have 4 guys in this race that have a really good shot at winning, but also 60% have already run this race, that win the race. So a lot of experience on this course, and obviously going down here to the dog park, this is where things settle in, but also you want to be able to be in that position, as we said on the girls' side.
And as is often the case, we'll see a race unfold just after another race, and the race unfolding very differently here. Ben Crane, that's hip number 73 out of Illinois, is out to the early lead. We saw Zariel Macchia blast out to an early lead but could not sustain it, wound up in third behind the eventual champion and the now 2-time champion Elizabeth Leachman, but Crane trying to set the early pace.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting sport, right? I mean, people have these different ways of running, getting out conservatively or pushing hard. We're seeing a little bit different on the boys' side, where we don't have Zariel Macchia like we did on the girls' side, really almost having a lead at this point of the race.
So the group much more intact here in the early going. The tall figure behind Crane, that's Jack Graffio, who's coming in as the Northeast Regional Champion. So easy to pick him out in a crowd here as they wound that dog park loop, and they'll reach the first half mile here shortly as the elevation tracker is there before you. Those large lumps on your screen, those are hills, as they will see him twice. And of course, one of my friends, your friend as well, Walt Murray's a legend in following events like that. Bob Kennedy, in winning his race, actually fell on the second trip down that hill and was still able to gather himself and win that race. We didn't see any major falls in the girls' race, but now that I've said it, Walt's jinxed it for the rest of the day.
Well, I tell you what, when you're coming down that hill, there's so much momentum that if you do fall, you just have to keep going. So it's a steep hill over there, but this is what these guys are thinking about right now. They're thinking about that hill. Everyone does, no matter if you're in the middle of the about it for the last 364 days, getting out into position, but then making sure you have energy to go up that hill and downhill 2 times.
So Ben Crane is the official leader at the first half mile mark in 2:23.2, as Graffio, Gavenas, Malachi Burnett, Trey Caldwell's your top 5, followed by a very good group of men behind him. Van Furman, Keegan Smith, Josiah Tostenson out of Oregon, Vincent Recupero, and Matthew Gardena. So they settle in here. They came back through briefly to that space where they start and eventually finish the race. So it's like a hub and spoke kind of race course here, but now they get sent out, and looming in the distance in their view is the Hoka Hill.
Yeah, the Hoka Hill is coming up, but you know, it's interesting to see that Jack Graffio is just sitting on the shoulder here. We know that he took out his regional and just smashed it, right? I mean, 15-second win he had. This is what it's all about when you come here and you know you respect every single person in the race around you. You have to sometimes conserve a little bit of energy for that second lap.
So great. Ben Crane continues to deliver a lead here in this boys championship race in San Diego as they've elapsed through 4 minutes on the clock. Lurking behind him is Graffio, and now just on the cusp of starting to show us what kind of climb talent each of these top individuals has.
Yeah, so many of them, when we were talking to them on Thursday, even said they just love the hill. They love the strength that it takes to get up it, but also just the power behind it. And, you know, a lot of these athletes are super good over the 1,600-meter mile distance, and that strength is really going to help on the hills. A lot of times people wonder, can track athletes really transition onto the grass? And I'm seeing it time and time again now, much like we are in the marathon. We're seeing all these great, you know, middle distance runners move up. So that strength, that speed, it really works hand in hand.
Coming through the first mile mark here now, officially in 4:48.4, slightly off our course record pace that's set back in 1985 by Ruben Reina. But right now, here comes the climb for Crane, Graffio, Gavenas. Quagliaroli is now moved up into fourth, followed by Burnett, Benjamin Anderson, Tostenson, as the folks we talked about at the beginning of the show beginning to emerge a little bit as they'll kind of do a switchback climb here around the outskirts of the kind of the westernmost end of Balboa Park. When they reach the top of the hill, they'll make that turn on Upus, and then down they go.
This hill seems like the steepest part would be the hardest part, but I think once you get up along the roadway, there's still a little bump. That is really hard. It's deceivingly hard, and the athletes have to regroup mentally because they are still climbing. They're getting hurt. They're starting to hurt a little bit. But yeah, right here, it's just like they're still going.
And for anyone who's coming here for the first time, you do your run-throughs and you test the course here in that day before the race, but is there anything that compares to going down that hill in a championship race?
I mean, it is the fastest you will run, and you know, probably in most of your career, because it is so steep and it is very jarring. And also, you'll see as they go down the hill, there's a lot of different types of terrain. You go over this coming up right here. We're going to see this little concrete slab there, and it hurts because it's like, oh, I can't move over it. But then you got to get going again. There's just a lot that's happening there, which is what cross country is all about.
Well, not only a lot happening down this downhill, but then maybe almost like a hard stop because you have to do basically a hard left 90-degree turn to get back into this game. And, you know, for the moment, much different race unfolding here on the boys' side than we saw with the girls, as we got, at least a dozen guys here in this lead group as they start to approach a mile and a half into this 5,000-meter championship race.
Well, watch that guy in the purple with the blonde hair that's kind of flowing in the wind there. That's Josiah Tostenson. He's a very good athlete. We know that he has these awesome track credentials, 4:03, 8:39, but he's had an injury this year, and it's just kind of wreaked havoc on his season a little bit. So coming around just in time, much like Leachman.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of the comparator to Elizabeth Leachman, who had a late start to her season and then eventually ended up being very successful in her last few championship races, and most importantly here in San Diego, winning her second consecutive Foot Locker title. So at 1.5 miles complete, now we'll start to populate not only that individual scores, but also the scoring for the teams here. Sam Quagliaroli out of the Midwest leads the first 4 runners to that split, all coming out of the the Midwest region. So by no surprise, they are the team leaders with 16 points through the first mile and a half. Jack Graffio now back in 5th in the Midwest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7.
Yeah, that is how the Midwest likes to attack this race. And, you know, we saw on the girls' side that the South ended up beating the Midwest by 1, but the Midwest had a huge lead through the half.
So 8 minutes elapsed on the clock here in the boys championship race at the 45th edition of the Foot Locker Cross Country Championships. And let's see what unfolds here as they kind of reach now past the halfway point.
Well, Tam Gavenas, the guy that was 3rd here, our top returner from last year, he told me he has been dreaming about the win. He wants this so much, and he's just loved coming here and racing here. But he's had some pressure now. I mean, you know, when you talk about being the top returner, that adds pressure.
As Kerry mentioned, 3rd a year ago, 31st in his first appearance back in 2022 out of Andover. and ready now to try to attack this next part of the course as they hit the dog park loop again and work their way through the second lap of this cross-country championship for Foot Locker.
I like it here right now where you see the athletes sort of switching the lead and just starting to throw some effort in and making sure that we're getting after it. A lot of times, you know, you get to that halfway mark of a race and that wakes you all up. You almost think of it as two races, the first and the second.
So you can see on the lower left of your screen the athletic course tracker as they've come around that dog park loop and are working their way towards the tennis courts and then are on and around the swimming pool, and then down below that course elevation tracker that is taking us through that second loop of the course and those looming Hoka Hills coming into view in the latter stages of the race. In this particular case, a lot more guys within a few seconds of the leaders as they try to race for a national championship.
Ben Crane, he was in the lead right here in the blue shorts. He's had a really good year too, but you know, he was 24th here last year, and so many athletes that finish in that 20th range really have that hunger to come back and to be up front. And so when we talked to him too, he said, you know, I'm just excited to be back. This is such a thrill to be here, but he's hungry. He wants it.
So at the 2 mile mark, they come through just a shade under 10 minutes, 9:57.7 with Gavenas, Quagliaroli, Anderson, Graffio, Juan Gonzalez, who we haven't talked much about here, but we also thought he was going to be one of the pre-race favorites. Disa is in 6th, and Ben Crane, Sean Freeze out of Minnesota, Keegan Smith, don't count him out yet. He's 5.5 seconds past the lead with those hills looming, and then Noah Bontrager in 10th.
Ooh, Benji Anderson making his way into the camera site here. He is a guy that lots of people have been talking about. Last year he was he was 9th here last year, so of course knows this course, and he's sort of just biding his time. He looks good back there. He looks like he's, you know, right where he needs to be, but Graffio maybe not quite as springy as we've seen him.
Yeah, Graffio back there in 4th position now.
But Crane, wow, he's kind of taken control from the very beginning of this race. He looks really good. Every time he has a bit of a turn, he leans into it. He really uses that momentum. But this is where it's going to start to hurt. You know, Tam Gavenas has been here. He knows it. But getting up these hills, as we've talked time and time again over just this broadcast, I mean, it is really a game changer.
11.5 minutes elapsed on the clock here in San Diego at Balboa Park. The elevation tracker on the lower part of your screen teasing what's ahead. That second climb up the Hoka Hills with Quagliaroli and Gavenas kind of battling here for the lead, but 3 guys behind them in that top 5, and that hill a bit of an equalizer. Who's got the strength to carry them up the fastest?
Now watching Crane, he did race last weekend. He was 14th at NXN, but Tam Gavenas did not race last weekend. So maybe is it somebody that has a little bit of freshness? You know, we know there was mud and there was rain last weekend, so that can make you a little bit heavy, but also get you super excited to finish this on this beautiful course that's, you know, not muddy, clearly.
Coming up on the 2.5 mile split here momentarily. We can reset the field and see what happens in this final stages of the race. A little bit more running to go with San Quagliaroli in the lead. Gavenas, Gonzalez, Anderson, and Graffio. That is your top 5. With Disa, Crane, and Smith, Freeze, and Gardena.
Excuse me, Quagliaroli, I'm sorry. I was looking at my screen and thinking that was Ben Crane, but that is all you right there. Sam's having a great year, but look at Tam taking over.
Yeah, he's really now trying to attack this switchback and looks over his shoulder, trying to break away from Quagliaroli here at a very important time as he can reach the top of the hill and then regather himself and manage that downhill and try to have a lead into the final stretch of the race.
Wow, is he putting it on, and he was just waiting for that. Gavenas knows that hill. He's been waiting to put that move on. He is just drilling it right here.
And he makes it to the top, and look at the lead that he's opened up here as Quagliaroli feeling the effects of that climb a little bit more perhaps than Gavenas, and Gavenas now going to make that turn and soar down to the down the downhill now and trying to really see if he can put some distance between him and the rest of the field.
He's got to let it rip here. I mean, this is where you just let it go. You can see a little grimace on his face. He's putting the pressure on, but right here, he's got just over 600 meters to go. When he makes this turn, keep that pressure on. Keep it going because the crowd will bring him in once he crosses that path with about 300 meters to go.
So Quagliaroli's still there in second, but he's not got much chance here with real estate running out, even though some of the dreamers to be future Foot Locker runners try to keep up with Gavenas, and they can't even do that, as well as Tam has really broken it open here in the final stages.
God, he's really looking like he's turning it over. The strength he has behind him. Look at this, arms are right in perfect position, and he's excited. You can hear and see so many people that you know in these final stretches. It is such a fun part of the course to run.
And getting back into the center of the stretch here where they started the race only about 15 minutes ago, as the crowd that has gathered here will bring him home. He's got to crest that initial start. But look at him go to the arms as he now senses the opportunity ahead of him.
Well, he told me that he knows he's the strongest in this field, and he is running that way. Look at the strength. Look at the speed. He's doing awesome.
Well, he's now trying to crest that hill. No sense of where he is relative to the field. Now he takes a look back, and now he begins to celebrate. And he has every reason to celebrate, as he's just a few strides away from coming back to San Diego and taking his first Foot Locker championship. Tam Gavenas. Juan Gonzalez with a very strong close, finishing in second. And Jack Graffio is going to reach the podium as well, as he finishes in third, just catching Quagliaroli at the line, as the Northeast goes 1 and 3 after the Midwest had dominated the team race in the early going. We'll see how that unfolds here as the rest of the field comes to the line. Keegan Smith finishing in 5th, Ben Crane 6th, Gardena 7th, Vincent Recupero in 8th, Sean Fries in 9th, and Philip Copiol finishing in 10th. And the Midwest does appear to still have enough of the low sticks at the top of the standings here to take the team title with 31 points, but the Northeast made it interesting as they broke up that juggernaut at the top of the standings through 3 miles and end up finishing in second with 49 points. The West with 64 points in third, and the South taking fourth with 83 points. But Tam Gavenas celebrating here at the finish line. We'll hear from him in a moment, along with Juan Gonzalez and Jack Graffio, and we'll keep a camera on the finish line here as the final racers come through the line at the 2024 Foot Locker Cross Country Championships. What a race for Tam Gavenas. Reminder, at the conclusion of the interviews, we'll also have a pause.